I guess when it comes to allocating practice reps at the quarterback spot this week, can you provide us with a little insight on how that has worked out for you, meaning who has been receiving the bulk of the reps?
Really, the way we've practiced forever with this offense is the number 2 quarterback gets at least as many reps as the number 1 quarterback. It's always been that way. We run our scout team periods where we've got 2 huddles. So there's a defense out there, and the first huddle will take a snap, second huddle will take a snap, and we rapid fire. We're trying to get 2 plays a minute, and we've done pretty good with that throughout the years. So, often we've got several quarterbacks that get a chance to get a good number of reps. And this year, it just happens to work out where we feel like we've got a pretty good number of guys that can play. And so we've sprinkled in all of those guys in the depth chart. The guys that we've seen play already this year, as well as Cade Ballard and Maurice Ballon. So certainly early on, it was Tyre and Christian. They were kind of at the top of the depth chart, and they got the bulk of those reps with the 1s and 2s. But we've continued to roll Jamel in, and Jabari and Cade and Maurice. And so this week with Christian getting nursed back to health, we've actually gotten him into practice, and he's been able to take some reps with us. Tyre's gotten really most of them with the 1s shared by Jabari Laws. He's gotten some, and he's got the bulk of the 2s when we've taken those. But I mean, I've seen Cade Ballard in there a bunch, and Maurice Ballon in there a bunch, and we just try to keep those guys ready to go. So I think we're kind of probably where we were a couple of weeks ago, just in terms of having guys ready.
Great. And you mentioned this before. Wisconsin is big up front on both sides of the ball. In essence, a wrestling match all day long up front. Can you talk about your comfort level when it comes to depth with your offense and defensive lines for such a game? Because you just may have to go 2 or 3 deep. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Starters are starters for a reason. We feel like those guys give us the best chance to win, and we want to be able to play those guys. But obviously, we do sub guys in, and the line positions, I think, particularly up front on offense, it's a lot harder to roll guys in at that position than it is maybe any other position besides quarterback. And we've done that before, but those guys really get good at working together as a unit. Obviously, with the center, you want to keep some consistency there, if at all possible, for the quarterbacks to take the snap from the same guy. I don't know that I am so concerned about the fact that those guys in one-on-one matchups are so incredibly big as I am the fact that they're also very athletic. And just in a one-on-one, try to knock those guys off the ball. That's hard for us. It's why we have so many double team blocks. It's why on the backside we don't zone block like pardon me, like a traditional team does. We're working all of our blocks to try to open up the running lane play side most of the time. So it's the cutoff blocks and the scoop blocks that help us get those big guys off their feet, because they're big and they're athletic. So I think up front, certainly they pose some challenges. Their offensive line, they are enormous. They're not big, they're enormous. And so to match up physically with those guys, we don't have anybody like that. So we're going to have to do a great job of just creating ways for our guys to get loose and get off of blocks and create some gaps. And I'm sure that's what everybody does against those guys. They would look like a big team to the Green Bay Packers.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Coach?
Yeah, sorry, I had to just get unmuted there. Jeff Colton-Bartholomew from the Wisconsin State Journal here. When you're preparing for a guy like Graham Mertz in Wisconsin's quarterback who's been up and down throughout his career, like how do you weigh it any differently? Do you just look at the good plays, or how do you kind of prepare for a quarterback that's not playing, the same game to game or snap to snap really?
We just prepare for the offense, and whether it's Graham Mertz or a couple of years ago we played Kyler Murray and he was the quarterback for Oklahoma. What a great player! I think Graham Mertz is a heck of a football player. I've watched a bunch of their games over the last couple of years, and I really admire the Wisconsin program and Coach Christ. I think he's an outstanding coach. I love the fact that they're so committed to being a good running football team, and that's where it starts. And I know that's who we are too. So I like watching what they do, and I think he does a great job managing football games and just masters the art of winning a football game. And so they've I don't know if I'd say Graham has been up and down. He's made a lot of plays for Wisconsin, and oftentimes the quarterbacks get themselves into a position where maybe they're down and maybe they're having to do some things that are a little bit out of their norm. And so you're trying to press and trying to help your team make a play, and the responsibility that the quarterback has to lead his team, that's a lot on a guy. So there's been situations like that probably where people probably think that's, he's up and down, but he's just trying to make a play for his team. And sometimes that means you got to press a little bit. And our guys are the same. Our guys get criticized at times because, the whole thing isn't going like we want it to, and they're trying to press and make a play. And Tyler's, I think, an outstanding quarterback in our offense. And he got all kinds of criticism from people that don't matter. Their opinions don't matter, but they're chiming in and saying, what's wrong with this guy? And he's not the guy. Well, that's the same guy that won the two Commander-in-Chiefs games back to back last year. So I think Graham Mertz is an outstanding quarterback. We prepare for him, but we've got to prepare for the entire offense.
Coach, this is Mike Hogan from Badger 24/7. When you look at Wisconsin's inside linebackers, Jack Sanborn and Leo Chanel, how big of a challenge do those two guys present for your offense?
Well, they look like our defensive ends. I mean, they're huge. And they run really, really well. The hardest guys for us to block oftentimes are those linebackers. And we get trying to get linemen up to them, and they get hung up. And when they get there, you'd like to be able to displace a guy, but they're so big, so physical. They're certainly going to be a challenge. I think they're an outstanding defensive unit. They're not holding people to 41 yards or 43 yards a game or whatever the heck it is rushing. Last week it was 26 yards on the ground for Illinois, 23 of them on one play. I don't know if there's a better run defense. So those two guys and all the rest of them, just great respect for that whole unit.
This is Steve McGargy from the Associated Press. I'm just wondering, you've had a number of close calls the last few years with Power 5 teams, whether it be the Liberty Bowl last year or Michigan, Oklahoma. What can you take from those experiences going into this? I don't know how many of those players are back this year for you, but having come so close against some big name Power 5 teams, how much can you kind of take that into Saturday?
Oh, I'll try to coach better, try to get our guys to the finish line. And that's it's been tough, each of those games. And I hate when we lose to anybody. It doesn't matter who it is, a Power 5 or a Group of 5 or an FCS school. We've lost all of them. And it's agonizing. And to play a premier program like Wisconsin and some of the others that you mentioned, it's a great experience for our guys. It's one of the reasons they come to school here. But we also have a chance to play a lot of those games. And over the next 4 or 5 years, we've got multiple Power 5 opponents on our schedule. So, we're challenged, and I think we just try to prepare our guys to perform as well as we can. It doesn't help us to try to prepare differently or make more out of a certain opponent. We've got to play as well as we possibly can. And that's week to week. If we don't play as well as we're capable of playing, then there's anybody we play can beat us, because frankly, we're not beating anybody on prospects. There's not a school we play this year that whatever state they're from, if we went in and offered a kid a scholarship and they offered the kid a scholarship, that we'd have a better chance to get him than they did. State of Georgia, at Georgia State, Western Kentucky, in the state of Kentucky, right on down the line, Connecticut, Ball State last week in Indiana. We're not going into Indiana and beating Ball State on prospects. That's, we've got to develop guys, and we've got to maximize our potential and play really, really sound football. Great from an assignment standpoint, great from a fundamental standpoint. And if we don't do that, then we don't give ourselves a chance. So we got to do that every week. And we're certainly going to have to do that on Saturday if we're going to give ourselves a chance.
Jeff, Ken McMillan from The Record. College basketball, we've seen a lot of the mid-majors really challenge the power schools in recent years. I think we've seen a bit of the same in college football too. I think a lot of schools from the next round of 6 schools and the other schools have made great inroads. In general, do you think the gap has narrowed between Power 5 and everybody else?
I think it's hard to compare basketball and football. There's only 5 guys on the court in basketball, and you get a couple really good players, I think you can have a good basketball team. I don't know if you'll go to the Final Four, but you can have a really good basketball team. And in football, it's such a complex game, and the skill sets from one position to the next are so entirely different. I think the transfer portal is maybe allowing some teams to pick up some players that have maybe played at a higher level and make them more competitive. I don't know. We have access to the transfer portal, but if a guy transfers to West Point, he's got to start all over as a freshman. So not too many guys out there that are excited about doing that, going through Beast Barracks and all those things. So, the experience with the transfer portal for us is we've had some guys go in, but nobody coming out. So I can't speak from experience, but I still think that the Power 5 schools are going to have the pick of the litter when it comes to recruiting. That's just the way it is. I mean, excuse me, Wisconsin, for example, has got a kid last name Burks, who's played in more games than anybody on the Wisconsin roster. And I think he's second most for starts. He's from the state of Indiana, Carmel, Indiana. His brother, Logan Burks, plays on our team. So Logan Burks didn't have a scholarship offer at Wisconsin, and he didn't have an offer at Ball State. He didn't have an offer at Indiana State. And so, the Power 5 guys, they're going to have the pick of the litter. And if Wisconsin didn't feel like their Burks kid was a good enough player, then they go in the transfer portal and find somebody that's better, or they go recruit somebody better. That's just the name of the game. And frankly, they go to Carmel, Indiana, Wisconsin, and they got a chance maybe to beat Indiana and Purdue on a kid in that state. And certainly they're going to beat Ball State on a guy. So I still think the Power 5s are going to be the more elite teams in terms of talent. And so I don't know if the gap is closing. I think there's always those teams and those games that, anybody can beat another team. When I was at Georgia Southern, we beat Florida at Florida. We didn't have any business beating Florida at Florida based on the fact that, we couldn't go into the state of Florida and beat anybody. And we had an inside linebacker that started for us in that game from Buchholz High School, which is in Gainesville, Florida, 4 miles from campus. And he came to Georgia Southern on a partial scholarship. So that's who we played the game with. Sometimes teams just find a way to win. And I think that's what we do every week. We're not beating people that we're playing on a regular basis on prospects. And frankly, the group of 5 teams aren't regularly beating the Power 5 teams on prospects. So there's always going to be those games, but if anything, I think the gap's going to widen. I think the Power 5s and the group of 5s, there's going to become a bigger margin in between them, my opinion.
Jeff, one more, if I can ask about coaching against the environment. Your team hasn't played many games before massive crowds like this, especially in since the pandemic. Have you done anything to prepare for the environment and the huge crowd and all that, or does it not matter to you?
I don't know how you prepare for it. I mean,
maybe you ramp the noise up, things like that.
Yeah, well, you can go in the indoor facility and turn on crowd noise or turn on music real loud. It's not the same. It's not the same as having the crowd out there surrounding you and the ebb and the flow of the noise and what down it is, what the situation is in the game. Our guys are, listen, our guys are accustomed to handling pressure. And that's just West Point. People put a lot of pressure on them in everything that they do. Now, it's not the same as playing in front of 80,000 people and they're all screaming at the top of their lungs for the other team. It's not the same. But I just don't know that there's a way we can simulate that environment and make them feel like we're prepared for that. They just got to go play the game. And our guys, there's a lot of our guys that have played in front of big crowds. They played, our seniors played at Michigan. When they were freshmen, they played at Oklahoma. The Army Navy game's a great crowd. It's not the kind of loud crowd like this is going to be, because if you go to that stadium, it's split right down the middle. Half the place for one team and half the place for the other. This is going to be about 99.9% red. And so there's just no way to prepare for it. But, our guys are mature and they're going to work hard and play hard and try the best they can. And I think that we'll be able to handle whatever comes our way. And I know they're going to make noise, and I know they're going to blow the roof off of that place when we're out there. It's just part of the experience. But, every team that plays there and every team that plays in environments like that has things that they do to be able to deal with it. And we do too.
Thanks, Jeff.
We get a few more for Coach.
Hey, Coach. Ken Kreitzer, Sons of the American Legion Radio. Thinking back to the game at Oklahoma 3 years ago and talking to your starting center afterwards, Bryce Holland, he said he just looked at the team across the line as wearing red jerseys. Tried not to think of them as a team he had watched on TV growing up. What kind of leadership do you need from the team going into play, on a big stage like you're going to have Saturday night?
Not any different than the leadership they've provided all year. I think we've got good leaders. I think we got tough guys. And what Bryce said is true. Every team has to prepare like that. It's an opponent. And, we got a bunch of guys that are going to be soldiers and they're going to lead soldiers. And it's not going to matter to them who the enemy is that they're facing, how much firepower they have, what kind of reputation they have as an army. Our guys are going to have to prepare their soldiers and themselves for battle, because the team on the other side and the group on the other side wants to beat them. the battles that they'll face 4, 5, 10, 20 years from now as leaders, those guys on the other side, it's different than a football game. And so they're not going to take anybody lightly, and they're not going to amp up their intensity because they think, well, this enemy's a lot tougher than the last one. They got to prepare the same. And so we try to coach our team to prepare the same as well, that it doesn't matter who it is. And as I just got done saying, we are not on paper more talented than Georgia State, Western Kentucky, Connecticut, Miami of Ohio, Ball State, Wisconsin this week. We are not going in there and beating those teams on the guys we've got. Our guys are they're tough guys. They play hard, they play together, they care about each other. And so they're compelled to try to do the very best that they can. And so that's what they're going to do this week. And on Saturday, they're going to try to do the best they can and play hard for each other and play together. And hopefully it'll be good enough.
Thanks, Coach.
Any others for Coach?
Hey, Coach, Charles Grievous again. Shifting from Saturday's upcoming game. In the past, and for a couple of obvious reasons, talking about Army players in the NFL was either unheard of or a novelty, if you will. But 5 former Black Knights are somewhere to be found on NFL rosters. Can you talk about what it means to you as their former head coach, minus Ali Villanueva, and what it means also to from a recruiting perspective to the Army football program?
Well, I'm incredibly proud of all those guys, including Ali. He's a great ambassador for our institution, this program, the United States Army. He's done more to bring recognition to this program than all those guys, because he's been in the league a long time. He's been in the Pro Bowl, tremendous player. And as I said, just a great ambassador for all of us. But I'm really proud of all those guys. And I think it's great for recruiting because it shows that, number one, you can get to the NFL from here, that those opportunities are there. And number two, I think that when you come to West Point, you're going to be coached and developed and trained to become an NFL caliber player. And I think our coaches and our staff do a great job of that. And so when a young man has aspirations to play at the next level, which about 100% of them do, they all think they're going to the NFL. It's nice to be able to show them that if they come to West Point, that dream can become a reality. And I think we got guys in this senior class that are going to have opportunities. And again, all those guys that are in the NFL that have played here in the last 4 or 5 years, none of those guys were 5-star recruits that had a bunch of Power 5 offers. They're guys that were guys we found and brought in and developed, and they worked extremely hard to get themselves to the level that they are to be able to play there and play in the NFL.
Great point. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go one more for Coach. Any others?
All right, you guys from Wisconsin are buying the cheese curds. I'll see you up there.